I do have 3 o'clock, Tom, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Can I start now?
You
All
want to
set.
wait for Kate?
No, Kate is here. The only
She's-
one I'm waiting.
It's not audible.
She might have trouble with sound or audible. Yeah. So
Yeah, but
she
I
said,
can.
wait a minute.
I can still start. Then going into regular session stuff though. Before I open the hearing for the Barnstable Conservation Commission, I would like to ask Angela to do the roll call for the quorum purpose.
Abedili,
Present.
Foster,
Present?
Hearn is absent. Lee,
Present?
Sampu,
Not here.
I just saw him sign in, so come back around.
all right, Tangney present. Administrator Darcy Carley,
Present?
staff member Catherine Pollock,
Present.
and Agent Ed Hoops.
Present.
Pete, can you hear me? Well, we have 4 anyways.
He may be in the
in.
breakout room, right? If they put him in,
Well, we have a quorum. You can start the meeting.
We
right?
have a
Correct.
quorum. I can stop doing the spill and then we'll come back, make sure that Pete is here before we start the executive session stuff. Acting under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and or Chapter 237 of the Code of the Town of Barnstable, the Barnstable Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August the 13th, 2024 at 3 p.m. There is no application for RDA and NOI this afternoon. This hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. The plans and application are on file and may be reviewed by scheduling appointments by sending email requests to Darcy Curley at 230 South Street, Hyannis. This hearing is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. In accordance with the Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20, please let the chair know if anyone is recording this hearing. Hearing none. This afternoon's hearing agenda is posted on the town's website. Remote participations. The Conservation Commission's public hearing will be held by remote participation as a result of an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed by the governor on March 29, 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Remote public access to this hearing shall be provided in the following manner. 1, the hearing will be televised via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via Town of Barnstable's Government's Access Channel. 2, the real-time public comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing the Zoom link 882-7152-6826 or use the toll-free phone number 888-475-4499 as shown on the agenda. 3rd, the public can also email the comments to darcy.curley@town.barnstable.ma.us at least 8 hours prior to the hearing. Before I read the executive session, is Pete here?
Mr. Chair, may I just ask if you can hear me now?
Yes.
All right, thank you. My audio isn't working. I had to join on my phone.
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, should we delay this agenda item to see if Pete can get in, or how do you want to work it?
Channel 18, is Pete here?
He's been invited to join this breakout session. I'm trying to invite him to the executive session, then bring him back here. He's sort of in limbo right now.
Okay.
That sounds like Pete.
Executive session, and then Stone can bring him in. How's that, Stone?
I've invited him.
Okay. Let's do that.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Excuse me if I may, Assistant Town Attorney Kate Connolly.
Yep.
When you go into executive session, you need to take a roll call vote, just as a reminder.
Yeah,
And you need to let the body know that you'll be coming back into public session after the executive session.
Right. Thanks, Ray. Let me read that description on the executive sessions. The executive sessions to ratify or revoke the decisions of the chair and the manager in consultations with counsel to assert or to the department's oppositions to petitioners' emergency motions with respect to the case before the Office of Appeal and dispute resolutions in the matter of Toballos Wellos, petitioner / applicant, docket number WET 20022-24, DEP file number SE3-5976 for property at 25 and 35 Cove Lane, Austerville, as on an assessors map 052, parcel 009, and map 052, parcel 012002, involving constructions of a wave break and plantings. If the chair determines that an open sessions could be detrimental to the commission's litigation positions, I declare that the discussions to ratify or revoke the discussions of the chair and the manager in consultations with counsel to assert the department's oppositions to petitioners' emergency motions with respect to the case before the Office of Appeal and dispute resolutions in the matter of Tobias Wello, petitioner and / applicants, docket number WET 20022-24, DEP file number SE3-5976 for property at 25 and 35 Cole Lane, Australia, as on an assessors map 052, parcel 009, and map 053, parcel 012002, involving constructions of a wave break may have detrimental effects on the litigation positions of the commission. And I therefore ask for motions to go into the executive sessions. Following the executive session, the commission will reconvene in open sessions. I will recognize the clerks to make the motion.
I move to go into executive session under GLC 30A21A3 for discussion to ratify or revoke the decision of the chair and manager in consultation with counsel to assent to the department's opposition to petitioners' emergency motion with respect to the case before the Office of Appeals and dispute resolution in the matter of Tobias Wheelo, petitioner applicant, docket number WET 20022-24, DEP file number SE3-5976 for property at 25 and 35 Cove Lane, Austerville, as shown on Assessor's Map 052, Parcel 009, and Map 053, Parcel 012002, based on the Chair's declaration that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Commission and will reconvene in open session following the conclusion of the executive session.
I second the
motion.
roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Tangney, aye. Sampu, are you there? We have 4, and that's a quorum.
Thank you. Stone is going to move us into the executive sessions.
We're back.
Yes, we are back. Stone, can I start the open sessions again?
All set.
Oh, is that okay? So under the old and new business, we have a discussion on allowing invasive management to continue as an ongoing conditions in a certificate of compliance. Darcy, do you want us to give us some background on that?
Yes, thank you, Tom. So originally, my thought to have this discussion, I'd first like to address the projects that come in purely as restoration projects. We sometimes see them come in from like Wilkinson or Joyce Landscaping, big companies. And a lot of times they do invasive removal, let's say on a coastal bank, do some plantings, and it's not tied into mitigation. And I noticed a lot of times years have passed, and then the consultant, the contractor comes back and says, "Can we continue to do the invasive removal?" And we look it up, and we've issued a certificate, and then I have to explain we never took a motion to allow it to continue on under an ongoing condition under the certificate. So then I was trying to always make sure I have the consultant describe that during the hearing, that is something that they would like to do, to continue invasives in perpetuity on an ongoing condition. So Ed assisted and helped me come up with the language, which I sent you, the draft language. And in the first sentence, you'll see invasive species treatment and removal is previously approved may be carried out in perpetuity with prior Conservation Division notice. Notification should be made within 5 to 7 days of scheduled treatment. The contractor doing the work must hold a pesticides applicator license, and any changes to the treatment protocol or contractor should be indicated at the time of notification. Except on a coastal bank, any invasive treatment within a wetland area must be conducted by a certified individual/company. Annual reports with photos shall be submitted to the Conservation Division for any year in which the invasive plant management occurs. So I guess I would ask the commission to first discuss this part of it, where we're just dealing with invasives for restoration work and it not being tied to mitigation. If you're comfortable with having an understanding that when you hear a project and it has invasive removal included in it, that if it doesn't get put into the motion, let's say that you're okay with the administrator either making sure I can address this or circle it on the boilerplate. I would be putting this draft language on a boilerplate, and then just having it added. And then when Katie does the COC, she will see that we have an ongoing condition. Also, if for some reason, maybe I make a mistake and I don't forget to circle it on the boilerplate, if it can, we would feel comfortable if the staff is okay to add it under the COC. So that is my first request for you to discuss. And then we might be going into other topic about the word may for mitigation issues. But
Question.
Thank you, Darcy. John?
Darcy, doesn't that also apply to not mitigation, but Phragmites removal?
yes,
When you say invasive, I thought you also did this or want to do this for Phragmites removal.
so we already brought that to the commission when
Oh.
Fred was actually the conservation assistant. We had some ones that he brought to the commission to make sure that you're comfortable. So we already had that. We already have that covered. We've been adding that to COCs when we're dealing with Phragmites. It was just some of the bigger restoration ones on the bank or in the buffer zones that I wanted one. It wasn't that one's specific to Phragmites, the language.
Okay.
So I needed to have one that just dealt with other invasives.
Well, in my opinion, it's a good thing to do, and I would support it.
I would too. So Pete raised his hand. Pete?
Yeah, I'm following the rules here. So actually, Darce, that's like fantastic wording and a thing. Just one quick question. Did we have a vote to come out of executive session, or are we in executive session still?
We had a
we
vote.
Voted out.
Okay. Got it. I just forget doing that.
Yeah, well, you didn't get, you came into the room, but you didn't actually end up voting to go into the room. You were dragged into the room, and then you kind of came out of the room without maybe voting. So, but we had a quorum to do it, so we're good.
Okay, no worries. I just got confused. But no, Darcy, great language, good solution.
Ed came up with that. I have to give him the kudos. We make a good team.
So is there any other question from the commissioner on this first request? Seeing none? Could I have a motion to approve the language that Darcy is proposing for the invasive removal as perpetuity or under the boilerplate?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Question, excuse me.
John, yep,
Yeah, this is applying to when it is not related to a mitigation. This is
Correct.
correct? Okay.
correct.
Then okay, thank you.
Roll call.
Abadili,
Aye.
Foster,
aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
and Tangney, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you. Darcy, you want to go to part two?
Yep. So part two, it kind of opened up a little bit more of discussion as if you're dealing with invasive removal when an applicant or a consultant has offered it for mitigation purposes. Especially paying attention to the first sentence in the word may. Ed and I have been talking it over, and we do not think it would, I believe it would make it very difficult to end up doing enforcement when, let's say, a property gets a certificate of compliance and 10 years passes, there's a new homeowner and they buy the house, and they don't even realize, maybe they closed down the house, they got an ongoing condition, and let's say if you use the word must, that we would have to go in there and tell them that invasives have creeped in and now they must retain a company to treat them. I have concern about doing enforcement down the road if that is getting written in as invasive species and removal as previously approved must be carried out. I would ask that it stay may. If the commission says no way, if they're offering this as mitigation for extra hardscape or additional hardscape, that it's maybe the commission needs to really start thinking about allowing invasives or considering invasive removal for hardscape. So I guess that's what we need to discuss.
Thank you, Darcy.
Mm-hmm.
John?
Thank you. And just for everybody's intro, Darcy and I have had a number of conversations about this and just whether the word should be may or must. Here's my concern, if I can express it. Where somebody comes in and as part of mitigation says, I will remove Phragmites or I will remove invasives. It is my sense that, and they get additional hardscape for that because we allow it as part of mitigation. It is, to me, that is a requirement that goes with the property. And therefore, whether it's this owner or a new owner, they cannot come back later and try to use that same invasive removal as to get additional hardscape. It's what we were talking about, Louise. I think you brought this up. Well, I think your word was double dipping. When we had the last meeting, we were talking about double dipping. So my concern is that if we allow invasive removal as mitigation for increased hardscape, that requirement of invasive removal ought to go with that property. And the only way to make that happen is to change the word only now for the mitigation to the word must. so that in the certificate of compliance, theoretically, a good lawyer will go to the deed, the recorded deed, and see that it says that because it goes with the property. Otherwise, why are we allowing hardscape for invasive removal? It's inconsistent, it seems to me. So I said to Darcy, it seems to me to be consistent, you either have to no longer allow invasive removal as mitigation for hardscape, or alternatively, you say, okay, fine, you got it, you got increased hardscape, but this goes with the property and is recorded as part of the certificate of compliance. So that was the discussion with Darcy going back and forth. And that's my concern. So I see Ed smiling, I don't know. Okay, thank you. That's just what I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, thank you, John. Just to bring the background a little bit for the discussions. And I see Pete's hand show up first, and then Louise. Pete.
I'm glad I got a lawyer there in his honor, John Abadili. So thank you. I completely agree. And I'm glad I don't have to come to the language to say so. Thank you, John.
Louise.
I agree with John. I think if it's for mitigation, the word must be used. And it's not even a question of double dipping. I mean, in other words, it's bad enough that somebody lets their so-called mitigation disappear and they still get the hardscape. It's even worse if later somebody else uses that same activity as in the same spot as mitigation again. But I think it's really kind of, we're deceiving ourselves if we think that that mitigation is going to stick. Certainly the hardscape will stick, but not the mitigation unless we say must. Now, this is a stupid question for Darcy and Ed, but why can't we make the new owners? I mean, I think we could follow along with the owners that claim that for mitigation, but if ownership changes, why can't we somehow document that the new owners are aware that this goes with the property? And I know that's a stupid question because you're going to explain it really well.
We're not going to be able to keep up with. Well, there's no way we can track real estate sales and who ends up with it. And I just want to counter, and I'm going to ask John Abadili, this is an attorney, that let's say somebody does not keep up, their new homeowner, they don't keep up with their invasive removal. And Ed and I Ed tells them, you need to go out and hire a contractor. You have not treated this. And if you don't, you're going to get $100 fine or a $300 fine because it's a violation of the order of conditions. When somebody does not pay their non-criminal ticket, they get a few warning letters, and then it ends up in first district court. And I'm going to ask John, if you were the attorney for the new homeowner who ended up with the property, they bought it in 10, 15 years has passed, that they're going to go up in front of first district court and we have to argue this ticket. I'd like to know how John would be if he was the attorney for the new homeowner, that they're getting a $300 non-criminal ticket, that they need to pay this.
Let me respond because I ain't smart enough to answer that, Darcy, and you and I have gone back and forth. But yet, to me, on one side, if I was representing, I'm saying, wait a minute, this was unfair. It was 15 years ago. I make all those arguments as any good lawyer, I'm sure, would make. On the other side of this, isn't there a strong legal argument that says, listen, you bought it, it goes with the property, your lawyer, when you closed in this property, was obligated, or the prior owner was obligated to tell you all of these stipulations. The certificate of compliance is a recorded document in the courthouse. And any, quote, good lawyer, thorough lawyer will research, representing a potential buyer would research this. So, but I'm not smart enough, Darcy, to answer your question. I don't have that kind of judicial experience. And I think rationally, I think it should be must. I do think, however, I would love to have a discussion with Kate or somebody else who's a lot smarter than I am about the question you just asked.
I think it's just Ed and I talked about this, and I can let Ed chime in too. Oh, you should have Ed chime in too, because he's going to be the one to be doing the enforcement. But I just want to say, I think that what makes it cleaner is if you stop accepting invasive removal and you go with the when we're dealing with a constrained site. And why? I think there's two different things. There's the constrained site. Go with it. Don't do the invasive removal. Go with the in lieu fee. And if you're dealing with another place where they put in as much mitigation that they can in the 50-foot, have them add into the 50 and the 100, and stop doing the invasive things.
Excuse me, if I can jump in, and I promise I'll start talking. But I did say to Darcy that, listen, to be consistent, if we allow invasive removal as mitigation for increased hardscape, then I believe that should go with the property and the word should be must. Or we as a commission could say we're no longer going to allow invasive removals or even Phragmites removal as mitigation for hardscape. It's got to be more than those things, something else. That's the only way to be consistent, in my opinion. So we have an option. Okay, I'm done.
So let me jump in a little bit. I'm going back and forth between the fence. First of all, I kind of agree with you guys in the sense that, if we approve the invasive removal as part of the mitigations, that means the homeowner or the later homeowner or future homeowner enjoy the benefit of the use of the hardscape, right? And I agree with that in terms of the must. But I think, for the long-term wise, legally, and there's some complications on that. So I'm also thinking that, if we don't want to do that, let's, not approving the invasive as the mitigation measure. And that would be get out of it just like the other options and then make us a more cleaner.
What about Phragmites removal? Would you include that?
No, we have that already in there, but we don't use, we should think about it whether we allow the Phragmite removal as part of the mitigation store.
It's when staff sees currently the word Phragmites, it goes in, but it goes in with the word may.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So yes,
right.
So you have to now not only think about this one, but the Phragmites.
Right. And again, either add the word must or don't use it, don't allow it as mitigation for increased hardscape. That's the only way to be consistent, in my opinion. How legally enforceable it is to the homeowner 15 years from now is a question I don't know, Dax. I don't have that experience to answer that question. But I think it's rational to require it.
Right. Angela, you raise your hand. I should let you speak.
Yeah, no, you said the same thing. I'm kind of between it. I understand John's point, but I also understand this is a management issue, a big management issue. And I can't figure out if we're talking about the wording, because could it be worded similar to must be carried out and may be continued in perpetuity, but not used for mitigation? Can the wording be specific enough to say must be carried out, but then give the parameters where it can't be used in the future for the things you guys are bringing up?
So I was already going to going back to just the restoration projects, I was just going to use this language and say that this is not for mitigation. So we have that clear.
Okay.
Right.
And that's done and over with. Now we're just talking about the mitigation ones. We'd have to come up with maybe separate language or just not do it. So
I think we all agree to that.
Luis?
I guess we all seem to be agreeing that using invasive control as mitigation for hardscape, since we can't really manage it to follow it through, it's kind of meaningless. We can't enforce it. So
Right.
so that's the way I feel too, like everyone else.
So we should consider not allowing for the mitigations as part of the invasive removal
Right.
credits. Be done. So, John?
Yeah, I'd love to get some understanding from the consulting community, Louise, about that, because, and from experts like Darcy and Ed, because invasive removal is a good thing. Are we willing to say you can no longer use it to mitigate, which is what I would be arguing, I just argued. No longer, I mean, as a commission, would I be willing to give some hardscape for some invasive removals? I thought so. I mean, that's why we've done it with Phragmites. We've allowed that. So why are we no longer willing to allow it? I'd love to hear from some of the consultants, their thought on that, just for some input. You know, if I asked the consultant, and there's one sitting there right now, Lynn, you know, would you prefer for the commission to no longer allow invasive removals for mitigation for additional hardscape? But if we did continue to do that, then that goes with the property as a forever thing. How do the consultants feel about that? I'm just looking for input. I'm struggling. I really am.
I think Lynn is waiting.
I'm always an interrupter, so I'm trying not to interrupt. Well, I can tell you from my experience with attorneys, because I have many jobs where I either have to clean up outstanding order conditions for new buyers or recent buyers, that an attorney, and I don't want to disparage attorneys, but in general, attorneys just look to see if a certificate of compliance has been issued. I'm not familiar with them that look further to see if there's ongoing conditions or even understands the ramifications of an ongoing condition. So to think that a good attorney is going to catch this and give the new buyer a heads up, I don't think that's really practical. And I do think that it might be a shock to a new buyer to have this expense that he or she didn't expect. I'm kind of curious. I was listening to Angela, and I wonder if there is a way you could craft a condition, because I think you're cutting off your nose to spite your face if you don't allow invasive removal, because I think that's really worthy.
Yeah.
And maybe there is a way to craft a condition that, because it also benefits the homeowner to maintain the invasive removal. So maybe there's a way to craft it that it must be continued. Well, either way, you wouldn't allow it as a double tag. But I was curious about it. I was wondering if you could explore more Angela's idea of perhaps just putting more words into it so it was more useful.
Do you think if there were more, I'm sorry, Tom, I should raise my hand.
No, that's okay, John.
Do you think, Lynn, if there were more words in it, that wise lawyer in 10 years would find it? Because my sense is kind of the same as yours. Lawyers are overpaid and don't do as much research as they should. Some lawyers. So that's my concern too. As a matter of, if I'm a homeowner, and I'm a homeowner on the water. I mean, if, you know, my lawyer, when I bought the house, didn't see it, and then you came to me and said, oh boy, the prior owner agreed to do this, now you go spend the money and get it treated, it would bother me, no question about it. But from a rational point of view, if the commission, and I also agree that invasive removals is a good thing, and maybe we should give some hardscape for it. So I'm really torn between those two positions, and I don't know how to resolve it. Maybe Angela's got better language skills than us, but.
No, and I wasn't trying, excuse me, to make it more wordy. I was trying to say must be carried out, but rather than not do it at all, then say, and may be continued in whatever clarification you want. Because I'm leaning towards may right now, because I don't want to see us not doing this. So I'm leaning towards that I would like to use the word may if we have to choose over must. If we could use both, must be carried out and may be, and then clarified, that's all I was saying. I don't want to make it too wordy.
But once you use the word must, then you're doing the same thing.
Well, not with the maybe.
Good try, Angela.
That's the future homeowner that we're never going to know if they read it or not. Then it becomes the may. So then we should just do may. Then I'm going to ultimately say that then we should be using the word may.
Yeah.
Let
I think
me
it benefits the homeowner as well, because if they want to do invasive removal, they would have to refile all over again. So it's not unworthy for the homeowner to have that. I don't care how many words you put in it. That wasn't my intent that an attorney's going to see it because there's more words. I just think you have to assume that they're not going to see it. And then what do you want to leave the buyer with? Maybe you want to leave the buyer with an opportunity to keep doing the invasives without having to refile.
But what if they ask for additional hardscape?
Then you put in the condition that that's already been used. You've already used that avenue and that won't be used again. I mean, you could do it that way.
That's a good thought. Let me go to Ed. Any thoughts from Ed?
Yeah, so I obviously I think May would be the better way to go with it. I don't think we should be offering invasive control as a mitigation measure. Because I don't think it can be applied fairly or uniformly, to be honest with you. So trading it for hardscape, I think, becomes problematic. In terms of the and I agree. I mean, please understand that I completely support invasive management. It's a really important thing. It's a much better thing to have a native plant community rather than one that's filled with bittersweet or Phragmites or anything else like that. So, in that respect, I think it's very difficult for anybody to do anything and the must. And the other idea of the must, again, is that there's an issue that the people who are buying this property 10, 15, 20 years down the line may not understand there's a financial cause for that, but they could have a deep philosophical opposition. There are a lot of people who just don't want to use herbicides for their control, and to sit there and force somebody because well now you're going to have to go against everything you believe in order to meet the constraints of a certificate of compliance. Which I would agree with Lynn. It's my experience that there may be lawyers who will catch the COC and that there is a certificate of compliance there to remove the stain of the order, but will they go into depth to see what that COC says? I don't think so. I mean, I know we've had several situations recently where we've had multi-million-dollar properties that have exchanged hands, and the new homeowner doesn't even know there were outstanding issues. So again, it as John said, it comes back to the caliber and quality of the lawyer or the paralegal that's doing the work for the lawyer. So I think it just becomes very difficult. I would fully support invasive management, but I think it's very difficult to tie it into the mitigation for hardscape. I think if you're going to do it, then I would agree what Darcy was talking about before, where you would be asking, instead of creating the mitigation or the invasive control as mitigation, that you would say, okay, well, we're constrained in the 50. I'd rather see the planting be put up somewhere in the 50 to 100 rather than saying, okay, that's it, you're done. The 50 foot is filled, but you haven't met or attained the balance of mitigation that you need in order to do that. So.
Thank you, Ed. As you guys are talking, my head is rolling and turning and stuff like that. and I want to flow this out and see whether it makes sense to you guys or not from what I'm hearing. I'm hearing is that if we are using the invasive removal as part of the mitigation measure, the existing homeowner should have the responsibility, and then you can use the must. But if we change the property hands, then maybe we should use the may as a change of hands. That may be an option. I don't know whether that is what that is.
I don't know how you can do that.
Huh?
I don't know how you can do that. I don't know. I have no idea how you could possibly do that. But I know Pete and Louise had their hands up, and John O'Day's on too. So
Yeah, Pete.
Oh, Lordy. If we are doing, I mean, invasive control is a pretty important thing. But when we use it to allow for mitigation of hardscape within our jurisdiction, it can be just a temporary benefit. And then 10, 15 years down the line, we've lost that and we've sold a little bit of our responsibility down the line. So the caution that's being voiced by Ed and Commissioner Abedili is a very sound caution that perhaps we should not embrace so readily, and only under very limited and extraordinary conditions, to have extensive invasive control be traded off for hardscape in the 50 to 100, or heaven forbid, 0 to 50. So I realize that caution, and we sort of moved or drifted recently in the last several years to allowing more and more mitigation in this invasive control, and more property owners are using it. And I'm seeing that the long-term result is potentially a negative to the resources that we are supposed to protect. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Louise?
I think we're just fooling ourselves if we think that in perpetuity, the mitigation that is removing invasives is going to hang in there. And what we're in using invasives as mitigation, we're just basically in perpetuity saying, okay, this property is going to have more hardscape on it without any other counterbalancing benefits. So I think whether we use may or must, we're giving something away. I believe in invasive control, but I don't think that trading off hardscape against that is going to benefit the environment long term.
Thanks, Louise. John O'Day, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion. I think we've probably swayed away from what the agenda item was, and I bet there's a lot of people who would be interested in this discussion who don't know that it's going on, because it was like, yeah, you should carry on ongoing conditions from invasive work. But I think that there's all sorts of interesting things that have just been said, like even if someone was giving up lawn and putting in native plants, there's nothing that says in 15 years that those won't be taken over by the bittersweet that's beyond them. So in terms of controlling things, there's no control over any of it. I think that I think you also have to keep in mind that I think it's probably rare that you see a project that is entirely in invasives as mitigation. I think more and more it becomes like a part of the overall package that's the project. And I think, and you've said it like, oh, it's, we see it more today than we did a few years ago. my wheels spin on that because I think that, you know, what a change that caused that is sort of how the commission's been following their buffer zone regs. I think if you went back 5 years ago and you read the regs, it's like you mitigate as much as practical. And that was what everybody did. And we gave up, you know, as much lawn as we could. And that was the end of the project and everyone was happy. And then it turned into like, well, no, that's not, I don't really mean practical. I mean, you have to give me every single square inch, no matter what the mitigation calculations are. And so then invasive started becoming part of the calculations, and then mitigation started spreading outside the 50-foot buffer. And now we're bringing you projects where it's like, yeah, we're going to give you mitigation landward of a house just to make your numbers work. And then you also have to start thinking about like, okay, mitigation, should we give it up more hardscape because they can't make our mitigation numbers work? But, you know, does the addition on the landward side of a house 150 feet away from the marsh that just happens to be near a bank, does that actually have any impacts on the wetlands, or that they can't make their 3-to-1 work? This is a way loaded conversation. And you tried to get into the mitigation buffer zone regs like a year ago or 2 years ago, and that spiraled. So I don't know where this goes, but it's a long discussion.
I hear you, John. This is very complex because it's site specific that we have to look at for each applications, and each one does bring in some kind of consideration with that. So, I don't know, John, your hand is up.
John or Dave brought up a point that sort of goes through my mind, which is that, you know, this is a discussion that maybe we should table for now and put it on a future agenda and kind of make it clear that the discussion includes an option of no longer allowing invasive removals, et cetera, for that. At least it'll open up to the public more. We get more input from the outside community, which we obviously value very greatly. We're missing one commissioner, maybe two commissioners. So, you know, I'm just wondering, Tom, if we should table this and kind of rewrite the agenda item to allow for more open discussion and each of us to think about this thing. I mean, Darcy and I had the opportunity to go back and forth quite a bit. So, you know, she and Ed and the staff have thought about it a lot, as have I, but we just kind of threw it out today to everybody else, consultants and commissioners. So my suggestion is maybe put this on an agenda for future discussion and write the agenda item a little bit broader so that people would understand what John O'Day's point was. I mean, maybe that.
No, I understand that because this is a complex issue. We cannot make that final determination today. So, you know, I'm also, before you even say this, I also thinking about table it in the future days so that we have a better discussions and more, you know, concentrated discussion, and maybe we can come up with some wording and something, and then listen to the public and see what the comment feedback is before we revise the language again.
Yeah.
So let me do this and just table this to a future agenda a future discussion in the hearing stuff. So any final word before we continue to our agenda?
So you're tabling the second half. We're fine with the first part.
The first one is fine without the mitigations. That's only the second part.
Just to make that clear.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thank you. So we have one extension request. Laura Bass Trust, trustee SE3-5900. This is a first request. John?
Yes, this is a demolition and rebuilding between East Bay Road and Weano Ave. I think the structures have all been brought down and they're working towards getting construction going on the first building out there, and it's pretty straightforward. First request.
Any question from the commissioner? None? Could I have a motion to approve the extension request for 3 years?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abadili?
Aye.
Foster?
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Tangney, aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. We have one revised plans request. Barbara C. Doherty, SE3-5X06. This is 500 Sioux Flying Hill Road, Sanderville. John?
Yes, I'll work on bringing up my screen for you all. This is a seasonal lake pier on Lake Waquaket. There was a set of stairs and a landing approved, and one of the items was, an extra sort of step off of the walkway. You can see this timber landing. It's a pretty good drop off down to the shoreline. And so back at the corner, they kind of added in this little stoop off of the landing. The other item is that the pier, as it existed last summer, it's not been fully deployed this summer. There was an extra section, basically this sort of ramping. It had been proposed as a couple of steps to get down there. They went with this ramping section so that it wouldn't be kind of along the water's edge. And it also helps in that, let me switch to the plan, you'll be able to see. Also, some of the sections that are 12-foot sections actually came as like 12 foot 4 inches. So it stretched a little bit. We're about 6 feet longer total. And one of the things that they found out last summer, and we've seen like even pretty early on this summer, we had this pier sort of like laid out so that, we had about 3 feet of water at the end, and even still, a boat would berth along the side. So you got like a 20-foot lake boat. We still had like a foot plus of water underneath the bow, which is nice. That's based on the controlled lake elevation, but even by like July this year, that had dropped a foot. So that extra few feet helps to give a little bit of freeboard underneath the bow of a boat as we get into August, and as that lake drops a foot, 2 feet over the course of the summer. So as I said, this was actually in last summer. We went out to do an inspection and kind of found it out of compliance and noted to them. So they have not redeployed the last section of it yet this summer, but they do own it and they would like to put it in, and we think it offers some benefit to the safety of a boat out there. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. We look at that, and then I think maybe I don't have a concern about the last section of the pier that you're adding in. We have some concern about the additional landing area. Is it a beach area or lawn area, or how is that?
No, if I go back to that picture, you'll maybe kind of see. It's literally just sort of a step off of the walkway, and then it's kind of a natural dirt path around these trees to get down towards the shore end. There's no grass, there's no place to set up, there's no place to sit, but it does get it, come November, there's like a gate that goes across this so that someone doesn't walk down there and fall off a 4-foot, cliff to the edge of the water. So these little steps make it so that they can get down toward the water's edge all year. Also makes it so that, putting the pier in at the beginning of the season or taking it out, they're not trying to jump up and down over this 4-foot high landing at the bottom of the embankment.
Okay, thanks, John. Luis?
What's that item that is, it's now partially hidden at the bottom of the screen. It looks kind of like a railing, but it
this here,
yeah,
that may be the gate that they literally put across. You can see there's like little hinges here on the end of the platform. They literally put a gate across it so that it's not like a fall off issue when the pier's not in.
The other thing is that ramp looks really steep with nothing to hold on to. Not, if that's what they want. I guess that's what they want, but
This picture was from last summer. I don't know with these seasonal things whether, that first section up here couldn't be raised up a couple of inches too. They're just clamped on to those.
Oh, okay.
So they may be able to soften that just sort of internally with their
Just bring it up to height wise.
but
Yeah. Okay. Angela?
Yeah, I actually went and looked at this because I had some concerns, but when I got out there, I have to say that I don't. I feel the resource area is being left alone. I do see it's a seasonal dock, and in order to get it in and out, they do need the platform that they have. So I do not have any problem with this once I actually walked it and saw it.
Thank you, Angela. Any other questions from the commissioner? Pete?
Yeah, this seems really reasonable. I'm okay with this.
Thank you, Pete. Could I have a motion to approve the revised plan as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Tangney, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you, John. We have one enforcement order, RF Designed Painting Corp., 146 St. Francis Circle, Hyannis, maps 291, parcel 227, failure to comply with an enforcement order at.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me share the screen here. So this is actually, there's been a lot of movement on this in the last week and a half or so. So this was before you about a year and a half ago. There was some work that had been done, and then the homeowner had ceased doing any further work with it. They were reminded last summer that they had certain obligations to do. They didn't get around to doing that. So about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I contacted the homeowner again with a new enforcement order compelling them to do the work that they still needed to do. One of the big issues is that they had an area that had been disturbed over here in this section of the BVW and buffer, and then they had a patio or a barbecue pit that was new hardscape that needed to be permitted or removed. They were originally intending to go forward with permitting, and then they chose again. They sort of went away from that. They've gone through several options. They've decided that they were going to pull it out, which they have done. In the last couple of days, they've removed the pit completely and restored the area again. I was actually out this morning with Lynn and the homeowner. The parts on this on the left side, the parts that are the original enforcement order conditions were the things that were still left to do, and we've essentially done almost all of this today. So the new enforcement order is showing new dates, essentially of the same things that they had to do in the past. Like I said, most of the let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of the 6 items, essentially 5 are almost complete or have been completed as of about 2 or 3 hours ago. Lynn has provided a sketch plan for restoration. We estimated the wetland boundary this morning, and it looks all good. So they are going to be doing what they really are down to at this point is just to do the planting, a couple trees and some wet meadow mix, or wet download wet mix further down in the BVW. So everything is good. If you have any questions, I will be glad to answer those.
John
is here as well.
One technical question, and why is this written to RF Design Painting Corporation? Are they the homeowner?
That is the registered homeowner,
okay.
but yeah, it's not a trust or trustee, but they are the.
Okay. You answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, for working with Ed. I don't have any question. Any other question for Ed, Commissioner? No? Could I have a motion to approve the enforcement order as written?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Tangney, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you, Lynn, for working with this.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Lynn.
Dylan,
Fun site.
Yep. We have one warning letter. I just want to read that into the record. Helen Kalyanis, 100 Frakeville Beach Road, Sandyville, maps 267, parcel 102, cutting vegetations within a wetland resource area, bordering vegetated wetlands and flood zone, and within the 50-foot buffer to a wetland resource area. So this is read into the record. Ed.
really, that's all it is. There was a nice couple who have owned this parcel. It's a vacant parcel of land. They've owned it for the better part of 30 years or more. They just started doing some work thinking they were going to improve things. They were not intending anything other than to do some cleanup with the property. They understand that they need permits. The parcel itself is significantly wetland, so they do understand that just anything that they do is going to have to come before conservation, and they're aware of that now. So it's all set.
Do you need a vote for the warning letter?
Just a note, yeah, just to be noted. That's all.
Okay.
It just needs to be noted.
Yep. I've read into the records as noted. We have 3 easy certificate of compliance. Nancy Johnson, trustee, Harbor Bluff, QPRT, SE3-5424. The second one is Hyannis Rosary LLC, SE3-5752. The third one is John Wallace and Nancy Webster's trustee, SE3-5759. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
Tangney, aye. It's everybody unanimous.
Thank you. We have one set of minutes, February the 6th.
I move to approve the minutes for February 6th.
Second.
Roll call.
Abedili,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Sampu,
Aye.
and Tangney, aye. That's everybody unanimous.
Thank you. The next hearing is August the 20th at 6:30. Next hearing, we only have one RDA. It will be a short meeting. So could I have a motion to adjourn?
And on the 20th, just I'm going to remind, I may or may not be back from my fishing trip.
Good. Thank you.
With fish for everybody.
They're little trout from up north.
Okay.
Good luck, Pete.
Thank you.
Enjoy the vacations.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Tangney, aye. Sampu,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
and Abedili. That's
Aye.
everybody. It's 4:14 p.m.